Today, we will be discussing the flexibility factor and the brilliance of adaptability.
Welcome to Radiant Genius Podcast. I'm Elsa Mehary, a creative strategist and feminine entrepreneur. Join me and the occasional guest where we will illuminate the path to brilliance in wellness, tech, and business trends. I will be guiding you through the journey of your inner genius to transform you into your most brilliant and badass self. Give yourself permission to live out loud at the brightest level.
Welcome to this week's episode of Radiant Genius Podcast. I'm Elsa Mehary, creative strategist and entrepreneur. So right now, I'm obsessed with the future. I'm going to call myself a futurist for the moment, really fascinated by how things can possibly shift over the next 15 to 20 years. I've been studying lots of predictive content and analysis trends. Things are really changing so quickly that we might just have a full return to where we are today within the next 5 years. Of course, you don't want to be too ahead of the curve so that doesn't benefit you, or too behind the curve. More than ever, there are tools to help us activate. And we're so fortunate right now that you can create a whole system of business within a few weeks if you have knowledge about where to start and you also have the motivation. No longer will you have to answer the question of where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Because quite likely your new or future job won't have yet been created because things are literally changing that quickly. So we are in the phase of understanding how much you can handle because you're not going to be able to do everything or take advantage of everything, and to be able to let go of what doesn't serve you. That's going to really be the challenge for most people, because the pace will move from slow and steady, where we've been in Pluto and Capricorn a whole generation, like the past 20 years, to really uncharted territory, full speed ahead, and really fire energy really fast. A lot of reinvention. This is where we are now. The past generation, of which I was a part of, pedigree, credentials, really a 4-year degree, a master's, a PhD, did a lot for people. You could just mention that and open a lot of doors, and you could coast on it, really. And that's no longer the case. In the end, that pedigree would not only open doors, but allow you access to communities from which you could pull potential employers, employees. And we could see how this decision that Kamala Harris, current vice president, I'm not sure what it will be by the time this is posted, her decision to join a historically Black sorority when she was in university affected her current positioning and solidified her space in the Black community. And this is a community identity she was able to leverage in her presidential campaign. And hopefully that campaign has led her to be in a beneficial place. So maybe you went on methodically plotting out a career in a particular gate-kept industry where a few white men held or withheld your fate. This is no longer the case. And if you haven't gotten the memo, listen up. Those degrees no longer matter in the same capacity, with the exception of maybe highly technical jobs like surgeon, space engineer. But even that is going to shift in terms of access. Those jobs can't fake the requirements necessarily, but there's going to be a whole industry of jobs that you don't need a 4-year degree or training necessarily, just because, like AI, for example, you can take a course and by the time you finish that course, the landscape for that has completely changed. So it won't benefit you to study something for that long because it will be outdated. And so let's take an example. This listing I just came across for a creative director. This is a list for someone who has 3 to 6 years experience. On this list of requirements for the job, everything from knowing every design platform, and there's so many, InDesign, all the Adobe, plus all the Canva, plus Figma, to being a writer, being a proofreader. Writer, proofreader, 2 different realms, but okay. Being a filmmaker, a film editor, a strategic marketer, a project manager, a social media strategist, a content maker, a computer coder, because you need to know WordPress, and a website designer. This is 3 to 5 years experience. So let's just say you happen to know all that. You learned all that in 3 years. Great. Good for you on a job or whatever. The level of you having a high skill level and all those things, it's not happening. It's not happening. And so it's this disconnect between the expectation and the reality. And so they'll probably hire someone who looks the part, has a couple of those things. And the pay was really low too. It was like 65,000 for you being, and the title was very high. So, I mean, and this is not new, but this is the direction. And so really, you have people advertising for a job in which they have no idea the level of skill that you need for all of the requirements they've listed. And then they're not providing adequate compensation for really 10 years of knowledge, right? Minimal. And then the headlines are saying people don't want to work. So the person that's actually qualified for that job would literally be working 24 hours a day to get all that stuff done, because social media manager alone is taking you, that's levels. And likely you wouldn't be doing any of the high level creative direction, but you'd be taking orders, because I can just tell you probably the case. And if you have all those skills, you probably want to run your own business. And why would you want to run theirs? But basically, you could work for a misleading job application, or you can make it happen for yourself. So I want to turn to this parable. It's the story of a man whose horse ran away. So the story goes, a farmer and his son had a beloved horse who helped the family earn a living. One day the horse ran away, and their neighbors said, "Your horse ran away. What terrible luck." And the farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not." A few days later, the horse returns home, bringing with a few wild horses back to the farm. The neighbors again, "Your horses returned and brought several horses home with you. What great luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not." Later that week, the son goes riding, breaks his leg. The neighbors replied, "Son broke his leg. What terrible luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not." A few weeks later, the army called, couldn't recruit the son because of the broken leg. The neighbors replied, "Your son is spared. What great luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not." So basically, the point of the story is to have a "we will see" attitude and be detached, because things are going to be literally changing so quickly that could be great, could not be great, could benefit you, but ultimately your story won't be written until it's the very end, right? And the point of the story is that this upcoming climate, what looks like catastrophe, could be leading you toward your highest good, away from danger, into the very best years of your life, even though it may appear everything is burning down around you, which may actually be the case in order to bring you to a different place, right? So friends, soldiers, family, this next era is not for the faint of heart. We will be tested and we will be bamboozled. And it is up to you to make it through with guidance. So what do? You stay in a state of gratitude. You stay in a state of detachment to the outcome. You keep going, not blindly, but testing the direction of the wind and rerouting when you need to. How can you apply this to your business? Is it a good time to launch a business? Test it out. Maybe you have to reroute. Depends on what type. Is it a good idea to buy property? So everything is going to require a level of seeing what's happening in the world, what's coming up, what are we about to experience. And really, there's no good way to do it, but you can always pivot, even if you've made a wrong decision or a wrong turn. And maybe that wrong turn is going to open you up. So it's keeping a state of acceptance, a state of gratitude, and a state of curiosity. Those are the key characteristics that will really help you not fall into a sense of despair, like, I made a wrong decision. Oh my God, it's the end. And some things could be catastrophic, but really that's going to be kind of the temperature. I have to say, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming at us very quickly. So I've had personally so many careers at this point, really counter to a lot of my, I would say, college cohorts who have picked one industry, maybe they're a lawyer, they're a doctor, and they've stayed in. Not necessarily that those people are happy, But because they've held so long, and then it's a little bit more difficult to change. And so because I've dipped and dabbled and my previous career completely shut down, so I didn't really have a choice but to recreate something new. And I'm adding podcasting, but it is really one of this many things that I'm going to be doing. So it's like almost juggling a bunch of different balls and not identifying the whole multi-hyphenate identity. It used to be kind of laughed at, but now it's become more, and not just for New Yorkers. A lot of people, you have to do a lot of different things. I mean, alone, even if you have one job that has one title, literally from what I read in that job description earlier, if you do take that job and get that job, you can now say, I'm a writer, I'm a content creator, I'm a filmmaker, it's like the list goes on. And like, who's really all those things, right? You may be doing them well, but this is kind of the expectation, even if you have one job that you report to a few people or one person. So it's really going to be, what's your purpose? That's going to be the shift. Like your inner purpose, really. Why am I here? Am I here to enrich my life, others' lives, learn this particular thing, show up in this way? And not everybody is going to be the saint, right? There are some people that are here to be the villain because it's the polarity, and we need both, right? So like if you're here as the villain, play your part, play it well. And that's actually going to help someone else that needs to be the saint. And I know it sounds crazy because of the puritanical Catholic vibe that is in the US, but it's what's your personal purpose. So for me, it's making something beautiful and elevating that and amplifying that and helping others fulfill their purpose as well. And that's why I'm doing this podcast, to allow people to see that you can be flexible. There's so many different ways of doing things, and that things don't have to be perfect. Like I'm just starting in this journey, complete novice, and shifting from my formerly perfectionist way of being to now this very fluid, open, like, let's try this out and let's see how this goes, right? And so, okay, I want to share another story. I went to an Ivy League school, and which was, I feel, totally accidental. No, I worked really hard for it. There wasn't a guidance counselor that funneled people from my high school into these particular colleges. I was the only one in my high school that ended up going and had such a great time, right? But I didn't get a full scholarship, so I had to do work study. My first work study job was in the dish room in the cafeteria, and not a cultural fit. Absolutely not. I think I repressed it. Like when I was scripting this, I was like, what? Did that happen? Did that really? But yes, did that. And then that was short-lived. I don't remember how long. But then my second job, still freshman year, I was making omelets at the main Bohemian cafe, right, at the school. Super fun. It was lovely, a lot easier, a lot less oppressive. And it was a step up, right? And then at some point, they confused me with another Black student. I remember exactly who it was, too. And because, we all look alike. And they fired me. And then when they were like, you didn't show up for 2 shifts in a row or something. And clearly, I was always showing up. I was like fully type A. But for some reason, like I didn't challenge. I didn't fight because I was like, what proof do I have that, like, if they have me listed as this, then I don't have a chance. So whatever. I let it roll with it. I got another job. And then the other job that I got was the bomb. I was working at the metal smithing studio. And from whatever mid-freshman year all the way to my senior year, I helped other students make jewelry. Now, this is your first time listening and you don't know me, I had a jewelry company. And that was really born from that work study job that I had for 4 years. And it was so fun. So basically, this is all to say, had I fought for that omelet job, I don't know, maybe I'd be a chef now. But I let it go. And it was divine intervention because there was something bigger and better for me at the end of the day. Though I didn't know it, I trusted. I was like, you know what? I'm not supposed to be here at the omelet cafe. and I found something else, and I just kept going, and I didn't really dwell, and justice was not served, basically. Like, that was never amended. I was never vindicated, like, and who knows if it damaged my reputation, but whatever, like, years down the line, that set me up to now I knew metalsmithing. Now I was fortified as a jeweler, and I didn't end up going into jewelry for a while, but it was something that I always had and loved. And it really kind of charted the course for other things that I did, accessories, fashion, etc., expanded. And it was more in alignment with who I was, right? And so I almost feel it was fated, and I love that job. But when I graduated, jewelry didn't find me again. But I went through 3 iterations of the jewelry company before I landed in what it ended up becoming. And but the whole time I was working full time as a designer in magazines. But that was amazing. And then fast forwarded through all that. But in 2018, I had to shut that business down, and I left my full-time job and I moved to Miami, and largely because I was exhausted. But Miami wasn't the easy breezy that I thought it would be. And in a way, it was still me staying in the lesson of letting the environment lead, right? Because when I was there, they didn't care about pedigree, didn't care where you worked previously or what you were doing if you had a job at all. The energy was different. It was really all about money. It was flashy, party. Really, you had to be Spanish or have a Spanish background, and everything moved more slowly. And so it was like, do I adjust here or do I leave here? And I really couldn't adjust. I was sort of forcing, but it taught me an important lesson about being adaptable, really. I was in a different country without my passport because Miami is literally Latin America, but I wasn't prepared. And I think I was forcing something to happen. I wanted a certain type of experience versus allowing. And when I look back, because it was almost right before COVID, I was like, oh, that was an opportunity for me to rest before I went back into deep work, deep stress, deep all the things that the pandemic brought with it, right? Anyway, I ended up moving back to New York, and I tried to start my business up again, but things had shifted. And then I was like, okay, I'm going in a different direction. So I feel really by the end of the next era, people will have to demonstrate a level of flexibility in order to thrive, to be so diverse in skills as a rule. But are you going to be diverse for your employer? Or are you going to be diverse for yourself? And you're going to create and use your skills. You work with that one job for a while, and then you take everything you learn and like go on to do your own. But in the end, you're going to have the tools to really create everything that you need on your own. And you won't need that employer necessarily, or maybe you will hybrid part-time here, part-time there, and there won't be so much stigma around it. I think I saw something about a woman getting penalized for having 2 jobs, and it was like a government, a very corporate, high-level facing. It was like she had 2 really high-level positions, and then it was publicized that she was fined for this. When like, there's so many people that do this, maybe secretly, and that's no longer going to be a stigma in the future. It's going to almost be the norm, basically. And so the difference is going to be like how you're going to manage that, where you're not burning out and you're actually living, doing multiple things, but you're using all of the tools to help you do it. You're automating for everything to help you versus working the old way where you're doing everything yourself. And AI is going to really play a big part of that. And the model of having one good job is going to go completely out the window. And they might even come up with a new name for the way that we work. And the new model will be maybe a few monolithic communications companies, and then everyone else will have their own small operation or be part of a collective where we share skills for a price, which is now called consulting or contracting. But it's going to have a different energy attached to it. It's not going to be as stigmatized, I think. And the word boss won't exist either, I predict. You'll be more partnering with others to bring their community to life, and you'll be paid for your services at a fair price. Maybe this is idealistic. This is where I see things trending, because we can't continue at a pace where you're literally doing all these things, all these skills for one boss, and then they're paying you no money. Maybe this is going to be a new form of a union. Will this all go down before the collapse of the US? I'm excited to see. I'll be watching from my villa in Mexico. Kidding, I'll probably be here. I have no idea what the future is going to bring. Mind you, I do know that the number one skill you will need is to stay flexible in body, mind, and spirit. Get into yoga, get into meditation, get into gratitude, the art of detachment, so you can heal up, reroute, and continue to move forward to your next blessings. Ashe.
Thanks for listening, sending soothing calm to your nervous system. Hit subscribe and join me on this feminine-led entrepreneurial journey. The Radiant Genius Podcast, where we discuss all things brilliant.